Hey everyone, welcome to today's A360. My name is Brewster Knowlton, and today we're going to be talking about how you can turn data into information. Just about everybody who's read anything at all about data or analytics or big data has heard W. Edwards Deming's quote, "Without data, you're just another person with an opinion." But what about an interesting twist on that quote, "Without an opinion, you're just another person with data"? The converse of Deming's quote is an interesting play on the difference between data and information. Information has meaning. It has a hypothesis or an analysis behind it, and it explains what the raw data says. Data is just numbers, right? So there's a key difference between data and information. And so in this podcast, we're going to talk about a few different ways, or what's the process that will help you turn data, raw numbers, into information. The first step in the process of turning data into information is by asking a question. Data for the sake of data is meaningless, but if you use data to try to answer a question, then it starts to gain meaning. So the first step is ask a question of your data. Next, you want to form a hypothesis. Sounds a lot like the scientific method, right? But we want to form a hypothesis because we need to have something to test against. Even for relatively simple questions like, how many members do we have? What number do you think we should have? And are you right or are you wrong? But it gives you something as a benchmark, a baseline, very similar in statistics to the null hypothesis. And you want to be sure that confirmation bias doesn't come into this. So it's good to write down a hypothesis to say, this is what I think the answer is, and then go about either proving or disproving that hypothesis. Once you've formed your hypothesis, you then want to go and test that hypothesis. Perhaps, depending on your analytics environment, you have to go to multiple different sources to get data. If you have a data warehouse or a strong analytics platform with centralized and integrated data, you can just go there. The thing to be careful of is not to gather too much data. Don't gather more data than you need. Paralysis by analysis is a real thing. So only gather the data that is appropriate and relevant to testing the hypothesis. Unfortunately, a lot of people tend to stop once they've tested their hypothesis, believing that that's the end of this process from turning data into information. But there's a critical last step that's often overlooked, and that's the part where you analyze your findings and provide an explanation. You can provide all the charts and algorithms and statistical analyses that you want, but unless you provide a simple, concise, written explanation of the data, you're missing the most crucial step from turning data into information. You can put big binders together with all these spreadsheets and all those charts, but you've only written a lot but said little in that scenario. So you have to provide an explanation. Make an opinion of what the data shows. If you want to turn data into information, follow this process. You want to ask a question, form a hypothesis, test that hypothesis, and then analyze your findings and provide a clear written explanation of what the data is telling you. If you can do all this, you will have successfully turned data into information. That's it for today. Thanks again for listening to today's A360.